Well, there we go. After quite a crash last week, we've managed to not only bounce, but also maintain a pretty good upside setup. This is the 1 hour chart in Polkadot, and Polkadot, like most of the other altcoins, have hit their lows and rebounded, and just about the entire complex has followed the same pattern. And crazy enough, the equity space, the stock market, has also looked very similar to what we're seeing in the cryptos. We're going to touch on that momentarily, but this is the 1 hour chart. In our last few updates, we were setting up for a big crash down. We had what looked like possibly 3 waves up in a diagonal setup. And after this fourth wave, presumably fourth wave pullback, we were looking for a higher high and we never got it. And we had our parameters in place. We had Chainlink and Polygon break their supports first after they had their 1-2 set to the downside, and the rest is history. We were expecting a third wave to get us down to about $10. We actually hit that just about between the 1.32 and the 1.618 extensions. And then we had a small fourth wave bounce, which isn't totally visible here. And finally, we actually got into our perfect target zone between the 1.764 and the 2.0 extensions. That's where we expect the fifth wave of an impulse to hit based on the 1-2 that we have up above. So we're going to zoom up a little bit on the 5-minute chart. And things were looking a little iffy at first, but we've had pretty satisfying upside since then. So again, this was our third wave down, fourth wave bounce, and our final fifth wave that, well, went all the way down to 692. That was our official bottom in Polkadot. And we had 3 waves up, and it looked like we were about to keel over not that long ago. Actually, it was only yesterday. And since then, we've had a bit of a bounce. I've been using Bitcoin Cash as my main proxy for the altcoin just because it's had the most clean pattern, and therefore I've been using this to represent all my altcoins. Again, Bitcoin and Ethereum are following their own pattern. The structure is a little bit different, and where it looked like we had a 1-2 setup and we're about to keel over, we had an unexpected spike, and you could easily count this as a 5-wave rally up. I don't love the shape of it, but when you consider this to be the third wave and the fourth wave bottom here, that fifth wave did actually hit our target exactly as it should have, and our fourth wave pullback came nowhere near the top of the first wave. So by Elliott wave textbook rules, this does hold together as an impulse. Again, really funky shape, but we haven't seen any reason to believe there's any follow through coming to the downside. Now, we may be in some kind of consolidation. I would actually think this is probably maybe an A, B, and maybe we have a C wave coming as a second wave, but that is, again, Bitcoin Cash. Looking back at the Polkadot chart, we've seen similar action where, again, we have a 1-2, very powerful third wave up. Then we had a fourth wave, and this is probably a fifth wave. This could be considered a 3, 4, 5, something like that. The 1-2 is not always visible. So I guess that's believable. That's going to remain my primary for now, but we always must have an alternate pattern Elliott wave theory. No matter how much you don't like it, there is a bearish pattern in place. So this is 3 waves up. That could be an A wave, B wave pullback. And I don't think we are done with our C wave if we're going to have a C wave, because the proportions don't quite work out. Expect a C wave to get a good bit higher than this. If we put this Fibonacci extension here, assuming that's an A, B, expect our C wave to get up to $14, as far up as $16.40. So that could end up being, again, the C wave, or could mean that we're underway on our bigger picture rally. So I'm going to undo some of that just to show the proportions. So yeah, like I said, if we do have 5 up, great. Would prefer to see a little higher for our fifth wave up. So shifting to our big picture chart, we did actually hit our target. As I mentioned, we poked right down into our box. So we were looking at a large 1-2 nested setup, and we had a 1-2. This chart will look different to you if you've been following my updates on Polkadot. I have actually removed the green pattern because invalidated once we broke our low from summer of 2021. So therefore, I've re-engineered the whole thing. I've removed the clutter, and the red has become our primary, obviously, and it followed through, and the proportions have been pretty spectacular. So we had our A wave down, B wave up. This now must be a B wave because we did break below the origin point of our rally. So this can no longer be a first wave. And we have what is very likely a completed C wave down. Did it actually hit our proportions properly? Based on this being a 1-2, absolutely. It's actually kind of freaky how nicely it pulled back here. I know we have a big consolidation here. That looks like a fourth wave to my eyes. However, the fourth wave may have been smaller. Remember, in corrective waves, we don't always follow the rules. Things don't always look as clean as they do on impulses. So this is maybe the fourth of the third, something like that. Regardless, we hit our target. And when we look at our MACD MACD, it did crash back down pretty hard, but we're seeing that thing curling back up, especially as we kind of melt up. And we still have a divergence relative to our, relative to the crashes, the pullbacks we've seen in the recent past. So there's still divergence where the MACD is kind of curling up overall, despite our lower prices. So we've had a bounce ever since. We're not totally out of the woods yet. So going back to our small picture chart, again, this could be a corrective wave up. I would like to see the C wave go a bit higher than where we are. I think I said something like $15, $16. It could go as high as. Once that happens, we could see some pretty ugly follow through. And this is very similar to what we're seeing in the stock market. This is the ES mini futures, which represents the S&P 500, the biggest representative index for the stock market in the US. And we have what could be considered a 5-wave impulse off of our bottom that happened on May 12th. That's when our crypto bottom was as well. So we had a little higher high. It hit the proportions right. So this looks like an impulse. So if that's an impulse, isn't that a good sign? What's the issue? The issue is that we have this pullback here. This final wave down is clearly a 3-wave zigzag. And therefore, this is actually best interpreted as an A, a B, and a C wave impulse. If that is the case, expect a lot of bloodshed starting at the market open tomorrow into the rest of the week. Again, this is not a very high confidence setup just yet, but we have to watch out. We're not out of the woods because, again, we may, if we start turning back aggressively, we might invalidate our immediate upside pattern. And when we look at our small picture chart, again, we did hit our targets as we would have liked between the 1.764 and 2.0 extension. The 2.0 is below us, so 612 would be about where the small picture linear chart projects if we do get a lower low. On the big picture, I've had the orange alternate pattern. This is just on here temporarily. It doesn't really change the big picture structure. It's just giving us the option of a slightly lower low. So bottom of this box, about 605. Now, there's a chance we spike even lower because the proportion is a little bit different here. 438 is about as low as I would expect us to go. That's the 1.61 extension of this A wave. So A wave, B wave, and that would be the 1.61 extension. C waves almost never go that far, and even less commonly would go beyond the 1.61 extension. So keep that in the back of your mind, not time to panic. If you're looking to buy the dip, I hope you already did. I know I did. I didn't get the bottom perfectly, but I bought a little before and a little after. I bought different coins at different times. There's a lot more upside than downside risk at the moment, although the parameters are very clear. There is a chance we get down to, again, that lower $4 range. So you follow your strategy. Otherwise, if you're looking for a lower risk entry point, let's wait for a bigger 5-wave impulse to develop first, and then you can buy in the subsequent dip. As for what we're expecting in the future, I do have some projections here. Polkadot's a little bit easier to project than some of the other altcoins because we have such a perfect impulsive first wave and a second wave, and proportions have been pretty clean. But we can't really project anything with confidence until we see more of a first wave up. We need to see a bigger impulse. And if we do see that, typically, I've been saying this in all my videos, off this bottom, our first wave will typically have symmetry with what we're seeing in our what we saw in the correction. So something like that would be a possibility. Maybe that, and the first wave could top about where our end of March top was. That's the top of what is presumably the fourth wave or the fourth or the third, whatever that was. May see some symmetry there. If that's the case, we should have a pullback in our second wave. Now, that's about the $23 mark. So if we have a rally around that mid $20 range, and then we have a corrective pullback, that would be the next best place to buy because that would precede a spectacular rally. Where could we go? Well, big picture, especially as we see the stock market, we should have at least one more big impulse left. So I do have some diagonal channel trend lines. These are probably not accurate anymore, but our third wave should get us somewhere in the upper 300 to, I got 788 there. Let's not get too optimistic, but upper 300s, lower 400s range is a possibility. But again, we're not out of the woods. We got to see a bigger impulse of development because that lower low is still a possibility. I'll have plenty more updates, so make sure you subscribe. That way you can catch those. And if I don't get around to doing Polkadot videos, be sure to check out my community posts and my overall crypto updates, state of the cryptos videos. You recognize those. They have the pictures of all the crypto logos on there. I always use, I sometimes touch on DOT, but I generally go through a bunch of the more prominent coins. You'll get an idea of what's going on in the markets if you follow those. So until next time, thank you for watching and happy trading.